I was halfway through my morning coffee when the phone rang. Tuesday, 8:30. The number was local but unfamiliar. I answered anyway. "Mrs. Morrison, this is Susan Chen from Chen and Associates. We handle estate law." My hand tightened on the phone. Estate law? That's never good news. "I'm calling about your lake property," she continued. "The cabin on Route 47. Are you aware that a legal claim has been filed against it?" I set down my coffee cup, carefully. "What kind of claim?" "Your stepdaughter, Jennifer Patterson, filed paperwork 3 days ago with the county clerk. She's stating that you verbally gifted the property to her, that you told her the cabin was hers." The kitchen went quiet. Just the hum of the refrigerator, the tick of the wall clock. 43 years I'd heard that clock. Right now, each tick felt too loud. "Mrs. Morrison?" I never said that. My voice sounded steadier than I felt. I never gave her that cabin. Not verbally, not any other way. There was a pause. Professional. Concerned. "Has there been any discussion about transferring ownership? Any conversations about inheritance?" "No. The cabin's mine. It's been mine since my husband died. Before that, it was ours. We bought it in 1979. "I see." I heard papers rustling. "Mrs. Morrison, I think we should meet. Soon. If a claim has been filed, we need to respond within 30 days, or the county may assume the transfer is legitimate." 30 days. To prove I owned something I'd paid for, maintained, and used for 45 years. "Can she really do this?" I asked. "Just file paperwork and claim I gave it to her?" "Unfortunately, yes. Without documentation proving otherwise, verbal gifts can be difficult to disprove. It becomes a matter of credibility. Her word against yours." I looked at the wall above my kitchen table. There was a photo there. The cabin at sunset, the dock stretching into the water. Robert had taken that picture the summer before he died. I'd framed it because I couldn't bear to put it in an album where I'd only see it once in a while. "I have proof," I said quietly. "What kind of proof?" "Text messages, 5 years of them. Every time she wanted to use the cabin, she asked permission. 47 messages. Can we use the cabin July 4th week? Thanks so much for letting us stay." "Would it be okay if we painted the bedroom?" Over and over. She never mentioned me giving it to her. She asked, every single time. The silence on the other end felt different now. Interested. "Mrs. Morrison, do you still have those messages?" "Yes, on my phone. I printed some out months ago for a photo book project I never finished. They're in a folder somewhere." "Don't delete anything. Don't lose those printouts. Can you come to my office tomorrow, 9 a.m.? We need to build a response, and those text messages are exactly what we need." I agreed, took down the address, hung up. Then I sat there at my kitchen table, staring at my cold coffee, trying to understand what had just happened. Jennifer, the girl I'd helped raise since she was 18, the woman I'd let use my cabin every summer for free, the mother whose children I'd taught to fish off the dock their grandfather built with his own hands. She was trying to steal it, not asking, not negotiating, just filing paperwork, claiming I'd given her something worth $450,000, claiming I'd forgotten, or lied, or that I was old and confused and didn't know what I'd said. I picked up my phone, scrolled back through years of messages. There they were, everyone. "Can we use cabin this weekend? Thanks for letting us stay. You're the best." Asking permission, always asking permission. And now she was claiming I'd given it to her. I looked at the photo on the wall again. That dock. Robert had built it with his own hands, spent 3 weekends in the hot sun, leveling boards, sinking posts into the lake bed. Our grandchildren, David's kids, had learned to swim off that dock, caught their first fish, jumped into the cold water shrieking every summer. That was their inheritance, not Jennifer's, theirs. I stood up, poured my cold coffee down the sink, made a fresh pot. Then I pulled out my laptop and started looking for that folder, the one with the printed text messages. Because if Jennifer wanted to make this legal, we'd make it legal, and I had every text message she'd ever sent me. I'm 68 years old. I taught English at Cleveland Heights High School for 30 years before I retired. I live alone in a ranch-style house in the suburbs, the same house Robert and I bought in 1985 when our son David was 7. Robert died 6 years ago, heart attack. He was 69. We'd been married 42 years. The cabin was ours long before that. We bought it in 1979, newlyweds with a toddler and a dream of family summers by the water. Paid $85,000 for it, a fortune back then. Robert worked double shifts at the plant to make the down payment. I taught summer school. It's worth $450,000 now, but the value isn't in the number. It's in the dock Robert built with his own hands. The pencil marks on the bedroom door frame where we measured David's height every summer for 15 years. The screened porch where we played cards on rainy afternoons. The fire pit where we roasted marshmallows with our grandchildren. 45 years of memories in that cabin. And now Jennifer was claiming I'd given it to her. Jennifer came into my life when she was 18, Robert's daughter from his first marriage. Her mother had raised her in Toledo. Robert paid child support, saw her on holidays, but they weren't close. When Jennifer graduated high school, she moved to Cleveland for college. Robert was thrilled. Finally, a chance to really know his daughter. I tried. God knows I tried. I invited her to family dinners, helped her move into her dorm, bought her textbooks when money was tight. I wanted Robert to have that relationship, and I wanted David to have a sister, even if she was 10 years older. For years, it seemed to work. Jennifer graduated, got married, had 2 kids. We became her family. Holidays at our house, summer weeks at the cabin. I babied her children. Sophie and Jake, 8 and 10 now, taught them to identify birds, bake cookies, fish off the dock. I thought we were close. Looking back, I should have seen the signs. 3 years ago, Jennifer started asking about my estate plan. Casual questions at first. Mom. She called me Mom sometimes. Have you updated your will since Dad died? I told her yes. Susan Chen, my attorney, had helped me set everything up. The cabin would go to David's children in a trust. My house would be sold, proceeds split between David and Jennifer. She'd nodded, said that sounded fair, then asked, "What about the cabin, though? I mean, my kids love it there, too. Is there a way we could share it?" I'd explained that David's kids were younger. The trust made sense. Besides, Jennifer lived 3 hours away. David was local. He could maintain it, she'd dropped it, but the questions kept coming. Little comments. Must be expensive to keep up. Do you ever think about selling? What would happen if you couldn't manage it anymore? Red flag number 1. I ignored it. Red flag number 2 came last year. I'd given Jennifer a key to the cabin years ago. Made sense, since she used it regularly. One weekend, I drove up unannounced, found her there with a real estate agent, walking the property, talking about square footage and lake frontage. "What's going on?" I'd asked. Jennifer had laughed it off, said she was just curious what it might appraise for insurance purposes. The agent looked uncomfortable and left. I should have taken the key back right then. Instead, I made excuses. She was going through a divorce. Her husband Tom had left her for someone younger, cleaned out their savings. She'd been laid off from her marketing job. Her daughter Sophie had needed surgery, $32,000 even with insurance. Jennifer was drowning financially. I felt sorry for her. So I let her keep using the cabin. Free. Every summer. Every holiday weekend. I even paid to repaint the bedroom after she complained the color was too dark. Over 45 years, I've put everything into that cabin. $47,300 in property taxes alone. $28,000 for the roof when it needed replacing in 2019. $15,000 to rebuild the dock after a storm in 2021. David and I did the work ourselves. But materials aren't cheap. $8,000 for the septic system. Insurance, utilities, maintenance. All of it from my pension, my savings, my Social Security. Jennifer contributed exactly $0. But I didn't mind. I thought I was being generous. I thought I was helping family. I didn't realize I was building her sense of entitlement. My neighbor at the lake, Margaret Sullivan tried to warn me. Margaret's 73, lives 2 cabins down year-round. She's the kind of neighbor who notices everything, keeps binoculars on her porch, waves from her dock every morning, brings casseroles when she senses trouble. Last summer, she'd mentioned that Jennifer had been asking her questions. How often does Linda come up? Does she have any trouble managing the place? Do you think she'll keep it much longer? I told her you're sharp as a tack, Margaret said. But Linda, honey, those questions felt off to me. I'd brushed it off. Jennifer was just worried about me, making sure I wasn't overwhelmed, except now I knew better. She wasn't worried about me. She was assessing, planning, figuring out how to take what wasn't hers. My son David had been more direct. He's 45 now, teaches history at the same high school where I taught English. Married to Amy, 2 kids, Emma and Jack, 12 and 10. Good man, level-headed, exactly like his father. Mom, he'd said at Thanksgiving last year, I don't trust Jennifer's interest in the cabin. She asks too many questions, and she's made comments to Amy about how it should stay in the family when you're gone. It will stay in the family, I'd said. Your kids. The trust. I know. But I don't think Jennifer sees it that way. Just be careful. I told him he was being paranoid. Turns out he was being realistic. My flaw has always been the same. I want to believe the best in people. I want to trust. And I especially wanted this blended family to work. Robert had loved Jennifer. After he died, I felt responsible for maintaining that connection, for being the mother-in-law, stepmother, whatever I was, who kept the family together. So I ignored the red flags, the questions, the real estate agent, Margaret's concerns, David's warnings. I gave Jennifer the benefit of the doubt, and she used it to file a false legal claim against me. Now, sitting at my kitchen table with Susan Chen's phone number on a Post-it note, I realized something. Being kind doesn't mean being a doormat, and trusting people doesn't mean ignoring evidence when they prove themselves untrustworthy. I'd given Jennifer everything: access to the cabin, free use, a relationship with my grandchildren, a place in our family. I'd paid for repairs after her visits. I'd listened to her financial troubles. I'd tried to help, but I'd never once said, "This cabin is yours." Not once, because it wasn't. It was mine. And after I'm gone, it would belong to David's children, Emma and Jack, the grandchildren who actually came from my blood, my son, my family. That cabin was their inheritance, their summers, their grandfather's legacy, and I'd be damned if I let Jennifer steal it with a lie. I stood up, found the folder with the printed text messages, 47 messages over 5 years, everyone asking permission. Tomorrow I'd meet with Susan. We'd build a case. But tonight I'd do what I should have done months ago. I'd stop making excuses for Jennifer, and I'd start protecting what was mine. I met Susan Chen at her office Wednesday morning. 3rd floor, brick building downtown. The receptionist offered coffee. I declined. I'd already had 2 cups at home. Susan's office was exactly what you'd expect from an estate attorney. Floor-to-ceiling law books, mahogany desk, diplomas on the wall. She was 50-something, silver hair pulled back, drinking green tea from a mug that said, "Nevertheless." She persisted. She gestured to the chair across from her desk. I sat, pulled out my folder. "These are the text messages," I said. 47 of them, 2019 to 2024. Every time Jennifer wanted to use the cabin, she asked permission. Susan took the folder, started reading. Her expression didn't change, but I saw her make notes, circle dates, highlight phrases. After 10 minutes, she looked up. "Mrs. Morrison, this is excellent documentation. These messages establish a clear pattern. She's asking for access to your property, not claiming ownership, not referencing any gift. So we can fight this?" "Absolutely. But we need more than text messages. We need the property deed, tax records, insurance documents, anything that proves continuous ownership." "I have all of that, at home, in my filing cabinet." "Good. Bring everything to our next meeting. Friday, 2 p.m.? We'll build a comprehensive response. The county clerk gave you 30 days. We'll file within 2 weeks. I nodded. Felt something loosen in my chest. A lawyer believed me. That mattered more than I'd realized. One more thing, Susan said. Don't contact Jennifer. Not by phone, not by text, not in person. If she contacts you, refer her to me. This is a legal matter now. All communication goes through attorneys. What if she shows up at my house? Don't let her in. If she becomes aggressive, call the police. Document everything. I left the office feeling steadier. I had a plan. I had a lawyer. I had evidence. But first I needed to find everything else. The filing cabinet in my spare room has always been a pain. Second drawer sticks. You have to pull hard, then jiggle it left. Robert always meant to fix it, never did. Now it's just one of those things I live with. I was looking for the property deed Wednesday afternoon. I knew it was in there somewhere, under important documents or maybe cabin legal. The drawer stuck. I pulled, jiggled, it opened, and there, right on top, was a folder I'd forgotten about. Cabin, Documents and Memories. I'd made it last year. Started a project, a photo book for David's kids, pictures from the cabin over the years. I'd printed out some text messages too, the ones where Jennifer thanked me for letting her family stay. I thought they'd be sweet to include, proof of family memories. Now they were proof of something else entirely. I opened the folder. There they were, printed on regular printer paper, Jennifer's texts, time-stamped and dated. Can we use the cabin July 4th week? Kids are off school and Tom has vacation time. Thanks so much for letting us stay. Weather was perfect. Would it be okay if we came up for Memorial Day weekend? You're the best. Kids had a blast. Can we use cabin for Sophie's birthday in August? On and on. 5 years of asking permission, of thanking me, of treating it like mine, not hers. I sat on the floor of my spare room reading through them, my phone in one hand scrolling through the digital versions, the printed pages in the other, 47 messages. Not one mentioned a gift. Not one said, my cabin, or when you give it to me, or anything that suggested she thought it was hers. Every single one asked. Every single one thanked me for letting her use it. I was still sitting there, papers spread around me, when my phone rang. Jennifer. My finger hovered over the screen. Susan had said not to contact her, but she was contacting me. That was different, wasn't it? I answered. Linda. Her voice was tight, controlled. We need to talk. Susan Chen said all communication should go through attorneys. Susan who? My attorney. Estate law. She's representing me. Silence. Then, you hired a lawyer? For what? For the false claim you filed saying I gave you the cabin. It's not false. You told me. I never told you that. Not once. I have 5 years of text messages proving it. Her voice changed, softer, almost pleading. Linda, I think there's been a misunderstanding. I didn't mean to upset you. I just thought, with Dad gone, and you getting older, maybe you'd said something and forgotten. I'm 68, Jennifer, not 98, and I haven't forgotten anything. But you did say I could use it whenever I wanted. You said it felt like family. That's basically me being nice, not me giving you a $450,000 property. Another pause. When she spoke again, her tone had shifted, harder. You're making this more complicated than it needs to be. I filed the paperwork in good faith. If there's been a miscommunication, we can work it out. But getting lawyers involved... You filed legal documents with the county clerk. You made it legal, so yes, I have a lawyer. Mom, don't call me that. I'd never said it before. In 24 years, I'd let her call me Mom when she wanted to. But right now, hearing it, it felt like manipulation. Like she was trying to use our relationship to get what she wanted. Linda. Her voice was cold now. I'm not trying to hurt you, but I need this. You don't understand what I'm going through. The divorce, the bills, Sophie's medical expenses. I'm drowning. And you have more than you need. The house, the pension, savings. You don't even use the cabin that much anymore. I used it 3 weeks ago. For a weekend. I'm talking about full time. I could live there, rent out my condo, actually make use of... It's not yours to make use of. It could be, if you just... I hung up. My hands were shaking, not from fear, from anger, the kind that builds slow and burns hot. She wasn't asking. She wasn't apologizing. She was justifying, explaining why she deserved to take what was mine because she needed it more. As if need erased theft, as if her financial problems gave her the right to lie. I looked down at the text messages scattered on the floor, 47 messages, 5 years, every one of them asking permission, and now she was gaslighting me, telling me I'd forgotten, that I was old, that I'd said things I never said. I picked up my phone, blocked her number, then I called Susan Chen. "She just called me," I said when Susan answered. "Jennifer, she tried to convince me I'd forgotten giving her the cabin, said I was getting older, that maybe I'd said something and didn't remember." "What did you tell her?" "That I'm 68, not 98, that I haven't forgotten anything." Then I hung up and blocked her number. "Good." Susan's voice was approving. "That's exactly right. She's trying to plant doubt, make you question yourself. It's a common tactic. Don't engage." "I won't." "Bring those documents Friday. We'll file our response next week. She doesn't have a case, Linda. She has a lie. We have evidence." I hung up, stood up, gathered the printed text messages and put them back in the folder. Then I went to the filing cabinet, found the property deed, the tax records, the insurance policies, everything I needed. Susan was right. Jennifer had a lie. I had the truth, and I had every piece of paper to prove it. I spent Thursday gathering everything Susan needed. The property deed was easy, right where I thought it'd be, in a manila envelope labeled Cabin Legal. Original document from 1979. Robert Morrison and Linda Morrison, joint tenancy. After he died, I'd had it updated. Just my name now, Linda Morrison, sole owner. No gift deed, no quitclaim, no transfer of ownership. Just continuous, uninterrupted ownership for 45 years. I made copies, put the original back in the envelope, added it to my growing stack. Next, the tax records. I keep everything, a teacher's habit. Files organized by year, receipts in chronological order, property tax bills from 2010 to 2025, all in my name, all paid from my checking account. I did the math while I sorted them. 15 years, $47,300 total, every April and October, like clockwork. My account, my money, my responsibility. Jennifer's name appeared exactly 0 times. I added the tax records to the stack. Insurance came next. I called my agent Thursday afternoon, explained the situation. She was horrified. "Your stepdaughter is claiming you gave her the cabin. Linda, your name's been on this policy for 17 years. You're the sole insured, the sole owner listed. Can you send me documentation, something official? I'll send a certified letter. Policy details, payment history, beneficiary information. You'll have it tomorrow." "Who's the beneficiary?" "David Morrison, your son, has been since your husband passed." "Not Jennifer. Never Jennifer." I added that to my mental list. By Thursday evening, I had a 3-inch binder, tabs color-coded, documents organized, property deed, tax records, insurance information waiting to arrive, everything Susan had asked for. But the most important evidence was still on my phone. Friday morning, before my 2 o'clock meeting with Susan, I sat at my kitchen table with my phone and a pot of fresh coffee. I opened my text messages, scrolled back to 2019, started reading. I'd printed some of these already, the ones in my forgotten photo book folder, but I wanted to see them all, refresh my memory, understand the full pattern. The first message was from June 2019. "Hi, Linda, would it be okay if we use the cabin July 4th week? Tom has that week off and the kids are out of school. Let me know. XO Jen." I'd responded, "Of course. Just let me know which days so I can make sure it's stocked. July 2019, same summer. Thanks so much for letting us stay. Weather was perfect and the kids loved the new kayak. You're the best. August 2019. Can we come up for Labor Day weekend? Tom's parents want to visit and the cabin would be perfect. September 2019. Thank you again for the cabin weekend. Tom's parents loved it. You're so generous to let us use it. On and on through 2019, through 2020, fewer visits because of COVID, but still asking. Through 2021, 2022, 2023, every message the same pattern. Can we use, would it be okay if, thanks for letting us, asking permission, always asking permission. I counted them. 47 messages total over 5 years. Not one said, my cabin. Not one mentioned ownership. Not one referenced a gift. The most recent was from July 2024, 3 months before she filed her claim. Hi, can we use cabin this weekend? Sophie's birthday and she wants to swim off the dock. Thanks, Jen. I'd said yes. She'd come up. Used it. Then 3 months later, filed paperwork saying I'd given it to her. I sat there staring at my phone screen. The kitchen was quiet except for the clock ticking and the refrigerator humming. My coffee was getting cold again. I didn't care. 5 years, 47 messages, every single one asking permission. And now she was claiming I'd told her the cabin was hers, that I'd given it to her, that maybe I'd forgotten. I hadn't forgotten. I remembered every conversation, every summer she'd asked to use it, every thank you text, every time she'd treated it like mine, not hers, because it was mine. My memory wasn't failing. Her honesty was. I sat there staring at those texts. 5 years of her asking permission. Can we use the cabin? Thanks for letting us stay. And now she was claiming I gave it to her? My memory wasn't failing. Her honesty was. I arrived at Susan's office at 2 o'clock. Brought the binder, my phone. Susan's receptionist, Emma, young woman, efficient, showed me in. Susan was at her desk, green tea steaming in that same, nevertheless she persisted mug. Mrs. Morrison, come in. She gestured to the chair. Let's see what you've got. I set the binder on her desk, opened my phone to the text message thread. Everything you asked for. Property deed, original and updated. Tax records, 15 years. Insurance documentations coming tomorrow, and the text messages. All 47 of them. Susan pulled the binder toward her. Started reviewing. Deed first. She made notes on her legal pad. Then the tax records. More notes. This is excellent, she said after 20 minutes. Continuous ownership. Continuous financial responsibility. No gaps, no co-ownership. Nothing that suggests shared property or intent to transfer. What about the texts? She held out her hand. I gave her my phone. She read in silence. Scrolling back through years. Her expression stayed professional, but I saw her eyebrows raise. Once? Twice. Finally, she set down the phone. Mrs. Morrison, these messages are the strongest evidence you have. They establish beyond any doubt that your stepdaughter viewed this as your property. She asked permission every time. She thanked you for letting her use it. That's not the language of someone who believes they own something. Can we use these in court? If it gets to court, which I don't think it will, yes. But more importantly, we can use them in our response to the county clerk. And if Jennifer's attorney has any sense, they'll advise her to drop the claim the moment they see these. Relief washed through me, cold to warm, tight to loose. So we can fight this. We can win this. Susan pulled out a fresh legal pad. Here's what we're going to do. I'll draft a response to the county clerk. Attached exhibits, property deed, tax records, insurance documentation, and printed copies of all 47 text messages. I'll file it next Wednesday. That gives us time to get the insurance letter and organize everything properly. What happens after we file? The clerk reviews it. Jennifer will be notified. Her attorney, if she has one, will see the evidence. At that point, she has 3 options. 1, withdraw the claim. 2, proceed to mediation. 3, take it to court. What do you think she'll do? Susan leaned back in her chair, considered. Honestly, I think she'll withdraw. These texts are damning. No judge would rule in her favor with this kind of documentation. Her attorney will tell her that, and if she proceeds anyway, she'll lose and potentially owe your legal fees. She's in debt, financial trouble. Then her attorney will definitely advise withdrawal. Susan paused. But Linda, I need you to prepare for the possibility that she escalates. Some people, when they're desperate, double down. She might try to claim you have dementia, that you're not competent to manage your affairs, that the texts prove you were confused. I'm 68. I taught high school English for 30 years. I'm not confused. I know that, but she might try, so if she does, we'll be ready. We'll get a medical evaluation if necessary. Show cognitive function. Document everything. The thought of Jennifer claiming I was incompetent made my hands clench, but I kept my voice steady. Whatever it takes. Susan nodded. Good. One more thing. Don't engage with her. I mean it. If she calls, texts, shows up, nothing. Refer her to me. Any communication outside of legal channels could be used against you. I already blocked her number. Perfect. Keep it that way. Susan closed the binder. I'll call you Wednesday after I file. Until then, go live your life. Let me handle the legal work. I left her office feeling something I hadn't felt since Tuesday morning. Hope. That weekend, I went to the cabin. I hadn't planned to. But Saturday morning, I woke up and realized I needed to see it, touch it, remember why I was fighting. The drive took 90 minutes. Highway, then rural roads, then the gravel driveway through the pines. When I pulled up and turned off the engine, I just sat there for a moment, looking at it. The cabin's not fancy. 1-story, cedar siding, weathered gray, green metal roof, screened porch on the front, fire pit out back, dock stretching into the water. Robert always said it had good bones, strong foundation, built to last. We'd built our marriage to last too, 42 years, and even though he was gone, his work remained. That dock, the porch railing, the birdhouse on the oak tree by the water. I got out. Walked to the dock. The boards were solid under my feet. Robert had rebuilt sections of it over the years, but the original posts were his, sunk deep into the lake bed, level and true. I stood at the end, looked out at the water. October morning, cool and clear. The lake was mirror still. A few leaves floated on the surface, red and gold. This was ours, Robert's and mine. And after I was gone, David's kids, Emma and Jack. They'd learn to swim here, fish here, jump off this dock shrieking about the cold water the way kids always do. Jennifer wanted to take that from them, not because she loved it, because she needed money. She wanted to sell it, rent it out, turn it into something transactional, erase 45 years of family memories because she'd made bad financial decisions. I thought about her daughter, Sophie. 10 years old, sweet kid. She'd been coming to this cabin since she was a toddler, learned to swim off this dock, caught her first sunfish from this exact spot. Did Jennifer even care that she'd be taking that away from her own daughter? Or was the money worth more? I stood there a long time, watching the water, feeling the boards under my feet. Then I went inside, made sure everything was secure, turned off the water for winter, locked the doors, and drove home. Susan had the legal evidence, the documents, the proof, but I had something more important. I had the truth, and I had every intention of protecting it. I didn't go back to the cabin for 2 weeks. Susan filed our response the following Wednesday, just like she promised. Attached exhibits, property deed, tax records, insurance documentation, and all 47 text messages printed and organized chronologically. The county clerk will review it, Susan told me over the phone. Jennifer will be notified. We should hear something within 10 days. Those 10 days felt long. I kept busy. Graded papers for a former colleague who'd asked me to substitute teach a week. Had lunch with Margaret, who'd driven down from the lake specifically to check on me. Took David's kids to a movie while he and Amy went to a wedding. Normal life. Except nothing felt normal. Every time my phone rang, I tensed. Every time the mail came, I checked for legal documents. I was waiting, holding my breath, living in suspension. Finally, Susan called. Friday afternoon, November. Linda, Jennifer's attorney, reached out. They want to discuss mediation. My stomach dropped. What does that mean? It means they know they don't have a case, but Jennifer's not ready to withdraw completely. Mediation is a middle ground. We sit down, present evidence, see if we can reach a settlement without going to court. Settlement? I'm not selling her the cabin. I know, but mediation doesn't mean compromise. It means controlled environment, neutral third party, and an opportunity to confront her claims directly. I recommend we accept. When? They're proposing January 15th. That gives us 2 months to prepare. I agreed, hung up, sat at my kitchen table staring at my calendar. January 15th, circled in red pen. 2 more months of waiting. But this time, the waiting felt different. Not suspension, preparation. Saturday morning, I drove to the cabin again. The temperature had dropped. First real cold snap of the season. When I arrived, the lake had that November look. Gray water, bare trees, wood smoke smell from someone's chimney down the shore. I unlocked the door, turned on the heat. The cabin was cold inside, that deep cold that settles into walls when a place sits empty. I made coffee in the old percolator Robert bought in 1982. Still worked. Some things last. I took my coffee out to the dock. The boards creaked under my feet. Not dangerous, just old. Familiar. Robert had replaced sections over the years, but the original posts were his. Sunk into the lake bed 42 years ago. Level and true. I stood at the end holding my coffee, looking out at the water, and I thought about that summer. 2015. 10 years ago now. We'd been here for the 4th of July. Robert and me, David and Amy, their kids. Emma was 4, Jack was 2, and Jennifer's family. Tom, Sophie, Jake, everyone together. Robert was teaching Jack to bait a hook. Patient, gentle. The way he'd taught David 30 years before. Jack's little fingers fumbling with the worm, Robert's big hands guiding. Like this, buddy. Gotta get it all the way on so the fish. Can't steal it. Jack had squealed when the worm wriggled. Emma had laughed from the dock. Sophie and Jake were in the water, shrieking about the cold. Jennifer had been sitting on the porch with Amy, drinking lemonade, relaxed, happy. That night, we'd made s'mores at the fire pit. Robert telling stories about when David was little, everyone laughing, the kids sticky with marshmallow, the lake reflecting stars. Jennifer had hugged me before they left. Thanks for this, Linda. Seriously, this place is magic. I'd hugged her back. Come anytime, it's family. Now I stood on the same dock. October cold instead of July warmth. Alone. No children's voices, no laughter, no Robert. Jennifer hadn't been lying that night. I don't think so. She'd meant it. The gratitude, the warmth. She'd loved this place, loved bringing her kids here. But somewhere between that night and now, something had changed. Maybe it was the divorce, the financial pressure, the desperation. Maybe she'd started seeing this place differently, not as family magic, as an asset, a solution, something she could take. And maybe she'd convinced herself I wouldn't mind, that I was old, that I didn't need it, that I'd said something I didn't remember. Or maybe she just didn't care anymore. I stood there with my coffee getting cold. 42 years of marriage. 45 years of family summers. Robert's work under my feet. His posts in the water, his birdhouse on the oak tree, his memory in every board. This wasn't just property, this was our story. Every summer, every 4th of July, every kid who'd learned to swim here, every fish caught, every marshmallow roasted, and Jennifer thought she could erase that with a lie. I walked back up the dock, into the cabin, bedroom. His flannel shirt still hung in the closet, red and black plaid, frayed at the cuffs. I'd washed it once after he died, then couldn't wash it again. It didn't smell like him anymore, hadn't for years. But I kept it anyway. I touched the sleeve. Soft, worn. Some things are worth fighting for. Robert used to say that about work, about family, about principles. He was right. I left the bedroom, went to the bookshelf where we kept the cabin guest book, started it in 1980. First entry, Robert, Linda, and David. First summer, finally ours. 45 years of entries, visitors, family, friends, kids' drawings, notes about fish caught, weather, memories. The last entry was from July. David's handwriting. Emma and Jack's best summer yet. Thanks, Mom. Love, David. I picked up the pen we kept on the shelf, dated a new entry, November. Still mine, still standing. Some things are worth fighting for. Linda. I closed the book, put it back on the shelf. Then I walked through the cabin, room by room, touching things, remembering. The kitchen table where we'd played cards on rainy days, the couch where Robert used to fall asleep reading, the bookshelves he'd built, the window frames he'd repaired, the floors he'd refinished. His work, our life, my responsibility now. I'd spent 10 days feeling like a victim, attacked, defensive, waiting for someone else to resolve this. But standing here, in this place Robert and I built together, I realized something. I wasn't the victim in this story. I was the woman who'd worked double shifts to buy this cabin, who'd paid $47,000 in property taxes, who'd rebuilt the dock after storms, who'd maintained this place for 45 years so my grandchildren could make the same memories I'd made with David. I wasn't defending myself against Jennifer's claim. I was protecting my family's legacy. There's a difference. One makes you small, reactive, afraid. The other makes you clear, purposeful, strong. I wasn't weak for trusting Jennifer. I was human. People trust family. That's not a flaw, that's normal. But now I knew better, and knowing better meant acting differently. I locked up the cabin, drove home, called Susan from the car. The mediation in January, I said when she answered. I'm ready. Whatever we need to prepare, I'll do it. Documents, testimony, whatever. I want to be completely ready. Are you okay, Linda? I'm better than okay. I know what I'm fighting for now, not just property, not just money, my grandchildren's inheritance, their memories, their grandfather's work. That's what this is about. And I'm not backing down. Susan was quiet for a moment, then, Linda, I think we're going to win this. I know we are. Because I wasn't fighting out of fear anymore. I was fighting out of purpose. And that changes everything. Between November and January, the legal machinery ground forward. Susan requested additional documentation. I provided everything. Bank statements showing every property tax payment, credit card receipts for cabin repairs, utility bills spanning decades, every piece of paper that proved continuous ownership and financial responsibility. Jennifer's attorney, Mark Reynolds, according to the letterhead, filed a motion in December, requested a competency evaluation, claimed I might have dementia, that I'd made promises I didn't remember, that my age and recent widowhood suggested possible cognitive decline. I read that motion at my kitchen table, read it twice, then called Susan. They're saying I'm incompetent? They're desperate. Susan's voice was calm, clinical. This is a common tactic when someone has no case. Attack the person instead of addressing the evidence. We'll handle it. How? We can request a medical evaluation if you want, prove cognitive function. But honestly, Linda, I don't think we need to. Your text messages show clear, consistent communication over 5 years. Your financial records are impeccably organized. You taught high school until 3 years ago. No judge will buy a dementia claim. But they filed it. Because they have nothing else. The motion will be reviewed and likely dismissed. Don't let it rattle you. But it did rattle me. Not because I doubted my own mind, but because Jennifer was willing to claim I was losing it, willing to tell a court, tell the world that I was confused, declining, incompetent, willing to humiliate me to get what she wanted. David came over that evening. I hadn't told him about the competency motion, but somehow he knew something was wrong. Father's instinct passed down from Robert. "Mom," he sat at my kitchen table. "What's going on?" I showed him the motion, watched his face change. Anger. Then something harder. "She's saying you have dementia." "The attorney is saying that, trying to discredit me. Because you have proof and she doesn't." He pushed the papers back across the table. "This is disgusting." "Susan says it won't work. It shouldn't have been filed in the first place." He stood up, paced to the window, looked out at the backyard. When he spoke again, his voice was tight. "I'm testifying. At the mediation. Whatever you need. I'll tell them I talk to you every week, that you manage your finances, your house, everything, that you're sharper than most people half your age." "You don't have to." "Yes, I do. She's attacking my mother, lying about you to a court. I'm not staying silent." I felt something ease in my chest. Not relief, exactly. Validation. "Thank you." He sat back down. "Has she tried to contact you? Since the claim?" "Once. I hung up and blocked her number. Susan said no communication outside of attorneys." "Good." He paused. "Amy and I talked. We're not doing Thanksgiving with her side of the family this year. Tom's brother is married to Jennifer's sister. It's too complicated, too uncomfortable." "David, you don't have to." "Mom, she's trying to steal your cabin and claim you're senile. We're not doing Thanksgiving with her relatives." Family divisions, the kind that start with one conflict and spread like cracks in ice. "What about Jennifer's kids? Sophie and Jake?" His face softened slightly. "I feel bad for them. They didn't ask for this, but I can't pretend nothing's happening. Not around people who might be defending what she's doing. I still send them birthday cards. That's more than she deserves." Maybe. Or maybe it was just me refusing to let Jennifer's choices destroy everything. Those kids were innocent. They'd learned to swim off that dock, caught fish with their grandfather. They'd loved that cabin too, but they weren't getting it. That inheritance belonged to Emma and Jack. 2 days before Thanksgiving, Jennifer's attorney sent a settlement offer. Susan called to tell me. I was at the grocery store picking up ingredients for a dinner I was making for just David, Amy, and the kids. Smaller holiday, quieter. "They're offering a compromise," Susan said. "Jennifer withdraws the claim if you agree to put the cabin in a will that splits it between David's children and Jennifer's children. Shared ownership." I stood in the produce aisle, holding a bag of potatoes, processing. Shared ownership. Yes. 4 grandchildren, equal shares. The cabin would transfer to all of them when you pass. So Jennifer gets what she wants, just has to wait until I'm dead. Essentially. No. I thought you'd say that, but I have to present all offers. That's my job. The cabin goes to David's kids. That's what Robert wanted. That's what I want. I'm not negotiating my own will to avoid mediation. Understood. I'll decline the offer. I hung up, stood there among the produce. An elderly man was picking through apples nearby. A young mother was wrestling a toddler into a shopping cart. Normal people. Normal day. And I was standing here, deciding whether to rewrite my will to appease someone who'd lied about me. The answer was simple. No. December brought another complication. My blood pressure at my annual checkup, 168/95. Dr. Patterson, no relation to Jennifer, thankfully, looked at me over her glasses. "Linda, this is high. Significantly higher than last year. What's going on?" "Legal issues, family conflict, stress." "What kind of legal issues?" I gave her the short version. Cabin, stepdaughter, false claim, mediation in January. She made notes. "How's your sleep?" "Not great." "Appetite?" "Fine when I remember to eat." "Headaches, chest pain?" "Headaches, no chest pain." She wrote a prescription. "This is for blood pressure, temporary. But Linda, you need to reduce stress. I know that's easier said than done with a legal battle, but this level of stress isn't sustainable. It's affecting your health." I took the prescription, filled it on the way home, took the first pill with dinner. But I didn't stop preparing for mediation. because the stress wasn't going to end until this was resolved, and the only way to resolve it was to fight through it. Christmas was quiet. David, Amy, and the kids came over. We exchanged gifts, ate dinner, played board games. It felt normal, almost, but there was an absence. Jennifer's family had always been part of our holidays for 24 years, even after Robert died. Sophie and Jake running around with Emma and Jack, Jennifer helping in the kitchen, Tom carving the turkey. Now there was just silence where they used to be. Emma asked about it once. She was 12, old enough to notice, too young to understand completely. "Grandma, why didn't Aunt Jen's family come this year?" I'd prepared for this question, discussed it with David. "Aunt Jennifer and I are having a disagreement right now," I said carefully, "about the cabin. Sometimes adults disagree about things, and we need space to work it out." "Are you going to work it out?" "I don't know, sweetheart. But we'll still go to the cabin this summer, right?" "Absolutely." She seemed satisfied with that. Went back to her new book. Didn't ask more questions. But later, after they left, I sat at my kitchen table with cold coffee and quiet house and thought about what I'd lost. Not the cabin. That was still mine. Would stay mine. But the relationship. Whatever Jennifer and I had built over 24 years, stepmother, stepdaughter, family, that was gone. Maybe it had never been real. Maybe she'd only valued the relationship for what she could get from it. The cabin access, the free summers, the grandmother figure for her kids. Or maybe it had been real once and desperation had killed it. Either way, it was over, and I was grieving that. Even while I fought her, even while I gathered evidence and prepared for mediation and protected my grandchildren's inheritance, I was grieving the loss of the family I'd thought we had. 2 weeks before mediation, Jennifer sent an email. She'd found my address somehow, probably from David years ago, before all this started. It arrived late evening. Subject line, "Please read." I shouldn't have opened it. Susan had been clear. No communication, but my cursor hovered over it, and I clicked. "Linda, I know we're not supposed to be in contact, and I respect that you have a lawyer now, but I need you to understand where I'm coming from. The divorce destroyed me financially. I'm $180,000 in debt. Credit cards, medical bills from Sophie's surgery, legal fees. I'm about to lose my condo. I'm working 2 part-time jobs, and it's not enough. I genuinely thought you'd told me the cabin would be mine someday. Maybe I misunderstood. Maybe I heard what I wanted to hear because I was desperate. I don't know anymore. But I need help, and you have more than you need. The house, the pension, savings. You barely use the cabin anymore. I could live there, rent out my place, actually get ahead for the first time in 2 years. I'm not trying to hurt you. I'm trying to survive. I'm sorry this turned legal. I'm sorry we're where we are. But I'm asking you, please, can we find a way to work this out? Drop the lawyers, talk like family. Your daughter-in-law, Jennifer, I read it twice. Part of me heard the desperation, the genuine financial crisis, the plea. Part of me saw the manipulation, the guilt trip, the emotional pressure after legal tactics failed. And part of me just felt tired. I forwarded it to Susan without responding. She called 5 minutes later. "Don't reply to this." I wasn't planning to. "She's trying to go around the legal process. Appeal to your emotions. This is calculated." I know. "Linda, are you okay?" Was I okay? I didn't know anymore. My blood pressure was high. My sleep was disrupted. My family was divided. I was taking medication for stress. I was spending thousands of dollars on legal fees to prove I owned something I'd paid for 45 years ago. But I was also clear, determined, protecting what mattered. "I'm managing," I said. "January 15th. We'll settle this." "We will. And Linda, for what it's worth, I think you're doing the right thing. This isn't about being cruel. It's about having boundaries. And sometimes boundaries mean saying no to people we love." After I hung up, I sat at my kitchen table in the quiet house. Mediation was 14 days away. I had all the evidence. Susan was prepared. David would testify if needed. The text messages were irrefutable. But I also had high blood pressure, a divided family, and a stepdaughter who thought I was being selfish for not giving her a $450,000 property. Some fights cost more than you expect, but some things are still worth fighting for, even when it hurts. January 15th arrived cold and clear. I wore the navy suit I'd bought for Robert's funeral. Professional, appropriate. Susan had said to dress for court, even though this was mediation. First impressions matter. David offered to come. I told him no. This was mine to handle, but knowing he would have been there, that mattered. The mediation office was downtown, third floor of a modern building, all glass and steel. Nothing like Susan's traditional law office. This was neutral territory, designed for conflict resolution. I arrived 15 minutes early. Susan was already there, waiting in the lobby, green tea in her travel mug, briefcase at her feet. She stood when she saw me. Ready? As I'll ever be. Remember, let me handle the legal arguments. If they ask you direct questions, answer honestly. Don't volunteer extra information. And Linda, you have the truth on your side. That's the most powerful thing in that room. We took the elevator to the third floor. Conference room B. Jennifer was already inside. I saw her through the glass door, sitting next to a man in a gray suit. Mark Reynolds, her attorney. She looked thinner than I remembered. Hair pulled back tight, navy dress similar to my suit. For a moment, our eyes met through the glass. She looked away first. Susan opened the door. We walked in. The conference room was exactly what you'd expect. Long table, leather chairs, whiteboard on one wall, windows overlooking the city. The mediator, James Chen, according to his nameplate, sat at the head of the table. 50s, neutral expression, yellow legal pad in front of him. Good morning, I'm James Chen, certified mediator. I'll be facilitating today's discussion. Let's begin with introductions. We went around the table. Susan Chen, estate attorney. Mark Reynolds, general practice attorney. Jennifer Patterson, claimant. Linda Morrison, property owner. I held on to that. Let me explain the mediation process, James continued. This is voluntary, non-binding unless both parties agree to terms. The goal is to reach a mutually acceptable resolution without going to court. Each side will present their position. I'll ask clarifying questions. We'll explore options. Does everyone understand? We all nodded. Ms. Patterson, your attorney filed the initial claim. Let's start with your position. Mark Reynolds opened a folder, pulled out documents, started talking. My client contends that Mrs. Morrison verbally gifted the lake property to her in 2020. This was understood as part of family planning after Mr. Morrison's death. Mrs. Morrison told my client, quote, "The cabin will be yours someday, and you should think of it as family property." Based on these statements, my client made plans accordingly. She believed, in good faith, that the property would transfer to her. Lies, reframed, professional-sounding lies. James made notes, looked at me. Mrs. Morrison, what's your response to that? Susan spoke before I could. My client never made such statements. We have documentation proving otherwise. May I present evidence? Please. Susan opened her briefcase, pulled out a binder, the same one I'd put together months ago. Tabs, documents. Everything organized. Exhibit A property deed. Mrs. Morrison and her late husband purchased this property in 1979. After his death in 2018, the deed was updated with Mrs. Morrison as sole owner. No gift deed was filed, no quitclaim, no transfer of ownership documents exist. She slid the deed across the table. James reviewed it, passed it to Mark, who glanced at it, handed it back. Exhibit B, property tax records. 15 years of documentation. Every tax bill in Mrs. Morrison's name. Every payment from Mrs. Morrison's account. Total paid, $47,300. Ms. Patterson's name appears nowhere in these records. She made no financial contributions. The tax records crossed the table. James spent longer on these, flipping pages, checking dates. Exhibit C, insurance documentation. Mrs. Morrison has been the sole insured party for 17 years. Beneficiary listed, David Morrison, her biological son, not Miss Patterson. James nodded, made more notes. Then Susan pulled out the text messages. Exhibit D, digital communications between Mrs. Morrison and Ms. Patterson, 2019 to 2024, 47 text messages. I'd like to review several. She laid them out, printed on white paper, highlighted in yellow, dates visible. Susan read the first one aloud. June 14, 2019, from Ms. Patterson to Mrs. Morrison. Quote, "Hi, Linda. Would it be okay if we use the cabin July 4th week? Let me know." End quote. She looked at Jennifer. "Ms. Patterson, does this sound like someone who owns a property, asking permission to use it?" Jennifer's jaw tightened. She looked at her attorney. Mark cleared his throat. My client was being polite, respectful of Mrs. Morrison's presence. "For 5 years?" Susan pulled out another text. August 7th, 2021, quote, "Thanks so much for letting us stay. Weather was perfect. You're the best." End quote. She looked at James. She's thanking Mrs. Morrison for letting her use the property. That's not ownership language, that's guest language. James Chen leaned forward, started reading the text messages himself, one by one, silent, methodical. The room got very quiet. Finally, he looked up, set down the papers, looked at Jennifer. "Ms. Patterson, I've reviewed 47 text messages. Each one asks permission to use the property. Many thank Mrs. Morrison for allowing access. Can you explain this pattern if you believe the cabin was yours?" Jennifer opened her mouth, closed it, looked at Mark. Mark said, "My client believed the property would eventually be hers. These messages reflect a transition period. She was asking out of courtesy." "For 5 years?" James's voice was neutral but firm. "The most recent message is from July 2024, 3 months before she filed this claim. She's still asking permission, still thanking Mrs. Morrison for letting her use it." He slid one of the texts back across the table, pointed to it. This message, July 18, 2024, quote, "Can we use cabin this weekend? Sophie's birthday. If you believe this property was yours, would you ask, can we use it?" Jennifer stared at the paper, said nothing. "Ms. Patterson, I need you to answer. Did you believe you owned this property in July 2024? Her voice came out small. "I thought." She said it would be mine eventually. Eventually. But not in July 2024. "No. So when you filed a claim in October stating she'd verbally gifted it to you, that was false." Mark interrupted. "My client believed there had been a verbal agreement. Based on what?" James looked at the texts again. "There's no mention of a gift in any of these messages. No discussion of ownership transfer. No language suggesting Mrs. Morrison promised the property. Just 5 years of Ms. Patterson asking permission like a guest." He turned to Susan. "Does your client have anything to add?" Susan looked at me, nodded slightly. I spoke. My voice was steadier than I expected. "Jennifer came into my life when she was 18. I tried to be a good stepmother. I let her use the cabin every summer for free. I paid for repairs after her visits. I wanted her to feel like family." I paused, looked at Jennifer. "But I never said the cabin was hers. Not once. I never promised to give it to her. And I didn't forget. I'm 68 years old. I taught high school English for 30 years. My memory is fine." Jennifer's face crumpled. Her lawyer put a hand on her arm. "I understand you're in financial trouble," I continued. "The divorce, the medical bills. I know you're struggling, but that cabin isn't just property to me. It's where my husband and I built our life. It's where my grandchildren learned to fish on the dock their grandfather built with his own hands. It's their inheritance, not because I'm being cruel, but because I'm being a grandmother." My voice stayed calm, firm. "You had no right to file a false claim. You had no right to tell a court I gave you something I didn't, and you had no right to attack my competency when your lie fell apart." Jennifer was crying now, quiet, tears running down her face. She looked up at me. I needed it. The debt, the bills, everything. I was drowning. I thought, "You're alone. You barely use it. You have the house and the pension. I thought you didn't need it anymore." "That's not your decision to make." "I know." Her voice broke. "I know. I didn't know what else to do. I kept thinking if I could just get the cabin, I could sell it, pay off the debt, start over. I wasn't trying to hurt you. I was trying to survive." The desperation in her voice was real. I heard it, but it didn't change anything. Desperation doesn't justify theft. James Chen set down his pen, looked at Mark. "Counselor, based on the evidence presented, property deed, tax, records, insurance documentation, and particularly these text messages, I see no legal basis for Ms. Patterson's claim. A verbal gift requires witnesses or corroborating evidence. You have neither. What you have is 5 years of your client explicitly asking permission to use someone else's property." Mark's face was stone. My client was operating under a good faith belief, a belief contradicted by her own text messages. James looked at Jennifer. "Ms. Patterson, I'm going to be direct with you. If this goes to court, you will lose. These texts are irrefutable. You'll owe Mrs. Morrison's legal fees. You'll have a court judgment against you. And given your financial situation, that's the last thing you need." He paused. "I recommend you withdraw the claim." Jennifer looked at her attorney. Mark whispered something to her. She shook her head. He whispered again. Finally, she nodded. Mark straightened. "My client is willing to withdraw the claim. In exchange, we request that Mrs. Morrison not pursue legal fees." James looked at me. "Mrs. Morrison?" I looked at Susan. She leaned close, whispered, "You're entitled to fees, but if you want this over—" I thought about it. The $8,500 I'd spent, the months of stress, the blood pressure medication, the divided family. I could make Jennifer pay for part of it, drag this out longer, make a point, or I could end it. "She pays $3,000 toward my legal fees," I said, "and she signs a withdrawal agreement, in writing, notarized, stating clearly that I never gifted her the cabin, that she filed the claim in error." James looked at Mark. "Is that acceptable?" Mark whispered to Jennifer. She nodded again, wiped her eyes. "Acceptable. I'll draft the agreement. You can review and sign before you leave today." He stood. "We'll take a 15-minute break, then finalize the paperwork." Jennifer and her attorney left the room first. I sat there, exhausted, relieved. Susan squeezed my shoulder. "You did it." "We did it." "No, Linda, you did this. You kept the documents. You had the texts. You held your ground. I just presented what you already had." When she signed that withdrawal, I didn't feel triumphant, just tired and sad. Sad that it had come to this, that someone I'd tried to welcome into my family had been willing to lie, to attack my mental capacity, to take what wasn't hers, but I'd protected what mattered: the cabin, my grandchildren's inheritance, Robert's legacy, and that was enough. The mediation agreement was filed with the county clerk the next day. Jennifer's claim officially withdrawn, the property title cleared. 8.5 months after she'd filed, it was over. Susan sent me the final invoice, $8,500 total. Jennifer's $3,000 would arrive within 30 days. Net cost to me, $5,500 to prove I owned something I'd paid for 45 years ago. Expensive, but worth it. David came over the Saturday after mediation, brought his toolbox and a thermos of coffee. "Thought we'd fix that loose board on the dock," he said, "before summer, before the kids get too wild on it." We drove up together, 90 minutes of comfortable silence, father and son quiet. Robert had been the same way, working with hands instead of words. The dockboard was near the end. Slight wobble when you stepped on it. Nothing dangerous. But David pulled it up, checked the joists underneath, replaced 2 screws that had rusted through. I handed him tools, held board steady, the way I used to do with Robert. When he finished, he stood where his father always stood, looking out at the water. January cold, gray sky, ice forming at the edges of the lake. "He'd be proud of you, Mom." My throat tightened. "You think?" "I know. You fought for what mattered. You didn't back down. That's exactly what Dad would have done." He picked up his toolbox, paused. "We're bringing the kids up for July 4th. Emma and Jack. Start the summer tradition again. Amy wants to teach Emma to make s'mores the way you taught her." "I'd like that." "The cabin's not just yours, Mom. It's ours. It's theirs. And now it's protected. That matters." We locked up, drove home. And for the first time in months, I felt something ease in my chest. The cabin wasn't just saved, it was alive again. I met with Susan one last time. Thursday afternoon, her office. Green tea in the nevertheless she persisted mug. She handed me a folder, estate documents, updated. "Everything's protected now," she said. "The cabin goes to Emma and Jack in an irrevocable trust. David's the trustee until they're both 25. I've included provisions. They can't sell it unless they both agree in writing after they turn 30. Even then, family gets right of first refusal." "What about maintenance?" "You asked me to set aside $50,000 in a separate account. That's done. Earmarked for property taxes, insurance, major repairs. Should cover about a decade." I looked at the papers. Legal, permanent, protected. No one can challenge this. Irrevocable means irrevocable. Even if someone wanted to contest your will, the trust is separate. Established now, while you're alive and competent. It's bulletproof. She closed the folder, then did something I didn't expect. She pulled out her phone, showed me a photo. Small cabin, blue shutters, lake in the background, Michigan. "My mother's place," she said quietly. My sister tried to claim Mom had promised it to her. Same thing, no documentation, just a claim based on Mom said. We had to fight it. Took 9 months. Cost my mother $12,000. That's why I do this work. She looked at me. "Some fights are worth it, Linda. You protected your family's legacy. That matters more than the money, more than the time, more than the stress." I left her office with the folder under my arm. Estate planning complete, legacy secured, and gratitude for a lawyer who understood it wasn't just about property. Margaret appeared the next weekend. Didn't call first, just knocked on my door Saturday morning with a casserole dish wrapped in a kitchen towel. "Chicken and rice," she said. "Figured you could use a break from cooking." We sat on my porch. January sun, cold but bright. Drank coffee. Didn't talk about the mediation at first. "How's the lake?" I asked. "Quiet, frozen at the edges. Pete Jensen put his ice fishing hut out too early. Fell through. Had to be rescued by the fire department." I laughed. First real laugh in weeks. Margaret set down her coffee cup, looked at me directly. "I've watched that cabin for 23 years, Linda. Watched you and Robert build that life. Raise David's kids there every summer. It belongs with you. With them. Anyone at the lake will tell you the same thing." "Thank you." "You don't need to thank me. You just needed to know. We're here. We've got your back." She stood, picked up the empty casserole dish, squeezed my hand. "See you at the lake come spring." After she left, I sat on the porch alone, holding my coffee, thinking about Margaret, David, Susan. I'd fought this battle mostly alone. But I hadn't been alone, not really. Some people show up, quiet, steady, there. That's friendship. By February, life started feeling normal again. My blood pressure at the follow-up appointment, 134/82, still slightly elevated but better. Dr. Patterson took me off the medication, said I could manage it with lifestyle changes now that the stress was resolved. I started volunteering at the senior center. twice a month. They needed someone to help with estate planning workshops, teach people how to organize documents, how to protect assets, how to avoid the kind of situation I'd just survived. When people asked why I was qualified, I told them, not the whole story, just enough. My stepdaughter filed a false claim against my property, said I'd given it to her verbally. I hadn't, but I had to prove it. Took 8 months and $8,000. If I'd had better documentation from the start, clearer communication about my estate plan, it might have been easier. Some of them had been through similar things. Adult children claiming promises that were never made, family disputes over inheritance, siblings fighting over properties. We shared stories, strategies, support. Turning my experience into something useful felt good, better than just surviving it. Jennifer moved to Arizona in March. I heard through David. She'd remarried, a man she'd met online, moved to Phoenix. Fresh start. Her kids, Sophie and Jake, stayed with their father, Tom, in Ohio. Custody arrangement. She'd visit, but they'd live with him. I still sent birthday cards. For the kids, not for her. Sophie turned 11 in April. I sent a card with a Target gift card inside. Didn't mention the cabin. Didn't mention the legal battle. Just, "Happy birthday, love, Grandma Linda." She sent a thank you text. "Thanks, Grandma Linda. I miss the lake. Can we visit this summer?" I forwarded the text to Tom, asked if he wanted to bring the kids up for a weekend. He said yes. July, after the 4th, his time with them anyway. Sophie and Jake weren't responsible for their mother's choices. They'd loved that cabin, learned to swim there, caught fish with their grandfather. I wasn't letting Jennifer's lie take that from them completely, just from the inheritance. The memories could stay. Spring came slowly that year. Ice melted off the lake in late March. I drove up to the cabin in April, opened it for the season, turned on the water, checked for winter damage. None. Robert had built solid. I stood on the dock, still steady. David's repair holding, pulled out my phone, took a photo, sent it to him, ready for summer. July 4th? He replied within minutes. "We'll be there. Kids are already planning." I walked back up to the cabin, opened the guest book. Last entry, my own, November. Still mine, still standing. I picked up the pen, added a new line. April, spring again. Family coming. Linda. Closed the book, put it back on the shelf. The cabin had survived winter. So had I. The dock boards are warm under my feet. July, 2 years after the mediation. Sophie's in the water with Emma, shrieking about the cold. Jack's at the end of the dock with his fishing rod, patient like his grandfather. David's on the porch with Amy, grilling burgers. Normal, the way it should be. Sophie swims to the dock, pulls herself up, dripping. I wrap her in a towel. "Grandma, is this really going to be ours someday? Like, really ours?" I help her up. She's heavier than last year. Growing. Yes. It's in a trust. When I'm gone, it goes to Emma and Jack. They'll share it together. What about me and Jake? Honesty. She deserves that. This cabin goes to Emma and Jack. Your grandfather built that dock with his own hands. See those marks? I point to the railing. That's from when your Uncle David was learning to fish. He hooked the railing instead of the fish. She giggles. That's silly. That's family. This place has stories, and Emma and Jack's kids will make more stories here, just like you did. Can we still visit? Of course. Your dad's bringing you up next month, right? She nods, runs back to the water. I think about that mediation sometimes, the stack of text messages on the table, Jennifer's face when she couldn't explain them, the way she signed the withdrawal without looking at me. It still hurts. Not the legal fight. I'd do that again in a heartbeat. But the loss of what I thought we had, the realization that she'd been willing to lie, to attack my competency, to take what belonged to my grandchildren. But when I see these kids here, Emma reading on the porch, Jack fishing, Sophie swimming, I know I made the right choice. I'm 70 now. The cabin's been in our family for 46 years, and it's protected now, legal, permanent. Some people might think I was harsh, unforgiving. Maybe I was. But protecting what you love isn't cruelty, it's responsibility, and I don't apologize for that. The trust Susan created is bulletproof. Emma and Jack are named beneficiaries, equal shares. David manages it as trustee until they're both 25. Then they're on their own, but they can't sell without both agreeing in writing after they turn 30. Even then, family gets first refusal. The $50,000 I set aside sits in a separate account. Property taxes, insurance, repairs should cover a decade, maybe more if they're careful. I volunteer at the senior center now, twice a month, estate planning workshops. When people ask why I'm qualified, I tell them my story. The short version. Document everything. Keep records. Don't assume your family knows your wishes. And if something feels wrong, trust your gut. Those text messages saved me. If I hadn't kept them, I might have lost. Some of them have been through similar things. Adult children claiming promises that were never made. Family disputes over inheritance. We share stories, strategies. Turning pain into purpose feels good. Next summer, all 3 grandchildren are coming. For a full week. David and Amy, too. We'll do the traditions. Fishing at dawn, s'mores at the fire pit, swimming until we're exhausted. I'll write in the guest book. Maybe teach Emma how to row the canoe the way Robert taught me. When my time comes, and it will, I'm 70 now. I want my ashes scattered at the lake, right where the dock meets the water. This place is home. It always has been. If there's one thing I learned from all this, it's this. Document everything. Every conversation. Every text message. Every financial transaction. Those texts felt silly to save at the time. Why would I need proof I owned my own cabin? But they were the difference between keeping my family's legacy and losing it to a lie. And trust your instincts. When Jennifer started asking about my estate plan, I felt uncomfortable. But I pushed it down. I didn't want to seem suspicious. I wanted to believe the best. That almost cost me everything. I heard Jennifer's doing better now. Arizona. Remarried. I hope that's true. I really do. Financial desperation makes people do things they wouldn't normally do. I understand that. But understanding doesn't mean accepting. She lied. She tried to steal my grandchildren's inheritance, and I don't regret protecting what was mine. Have you ever had a family member claim you promised them something you didn't? Or found yourself fighting to protect what you worked for your whole life? I'd love to hear your story. Leave a comment below. And if you're worried about your own estate plan, talk to an elder law attorney. It cost me $8,500 to fight this, but it would have cost me everything to lose. Get your documents in order. Protect what matters before someone forces you to prove it's yours. I'm 71 now. The cabin's been in our family for 46 years. And if I have anything to say about it, and I do, because it's legally protected now, it'll be there for another 46. Some things are worth fighting for. This was one of them.